he said, I'm going to smack you, I'm going to hit you with this. And my boss was like, you're not hitting anybody with it. And immediately after my boss said that, he swings, hits my boss right here, and the cane broke. It snapped. Bam! Smacks, hits my boss over the head. And immediately I go in and I grab a body lock, right? And like John Danaher always says, like, check when you're up against someone, you got your ear against their chest, whatever. We went to the ground. He was like pulling my hair, and he's like, fuck you guys, like, I'm gonna beat your ass. He was just saying all this crazy stuff. The crowd around us, there was like ladies and dudes and like, you know, men and there was probably like 40 people around us just circled. There was people, like, there was guys around there that like, you get up, you start running, bro, we're gonna kick your ass, you know, stay there, stay down. It literally was like, in my mind, I was like, okay, I gotta hold this dude down to like protect him now from the public, because they're all mad because my boss is like, he was bleeding, like he was leaning over kind of looking at us, like, and there was just blood everywhere, just all over behind, all over my arms.
Welcome back to the BJJ Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ford. Today we have a very special episode for you guys. It's not really often we have white belts on the show, but today's guest has a very interesting story, and he's a really interesting guy. It's really something that happened to him recently is a great case study and an example of how just having a little bit of knowledge and learning and taking the time to study can go a long way, especially in a self-defense scenario against an untrained attacker. He's currently a white belt training out of Cesar Gracie's gym in Stockton, California. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Castaneda. How are you today, Matt?
Super great. I'm good.
Excellent.
Thanks for the invite.
Of course. No, it's great to have you here. The guys at Fanatics brought your story to my attention, and I thought, man, we got to get this guy on the show. So
yeah,
before we get to what happened with you and with the self-defense incident that you had, tell us a little bit about your background. Where are you from originally? How did you find jiu-jitsu, and how long have you been interested in martial arts?
I'm from Stockton. I'm from 209. I grew up here. I was born and raised in was it San Jose? I was like when I was a kid, but then we moved to Stockton. My family moved to Stockton, so I like, you know, this is my city. You know, I've been part of this city for a long time. My family's been, you know, yeah, I grew up here. You know, this is my place. My experience with jiu-jitsu started when I was 18. I bought a what is it called, the theory and techniques, Renzo Gracie's, you know, the book, the Royce Gracie's one. I had the pictures and everything like that. I couldn't read very well when I was younger, so I kind of like flipped through the pages and was like, okay, this is how you tie a belt, this is what a Kimura is and everything like that. But I couldn't pronounce any of the words, whatever. But I would flip through that when I was like, you know, I'm 18. I was terrible at reading when I was younger. So yeah, that was kind of like my first introduction of the sport, from that. And because I would watch, you know, I saw UFC fights at my grandparents' house, so I kind of was like interested in what the ground game looked like. So yeah, they had a big name, you know, the Gracies. So yeah, I started there.
Amazing. That's pretty amazing. So what I really like about your story so far, man, is that so it sounds like so far, correct me if I'm wrong, most of your learning has been self-taught. You've read books, you've watched instructionals, you've watched the UFC.
Yes.
When did you
exactly.
when did you join Caesar's Academy? Was that more recently?
When I was yeah, my brother told me about, you know, I wasn't doing any research. My older brother told me, he's like, dude, you know, Nate's gym is down the street, like why don't we go over there? And I was like maybe 19 or something like that. He's like, dude, he's like, I went to high school with them, they're hella cool, these dudes are tight, like let's go over there and check it out. So I did go. I walked in, I thought I was super cool. I thought I was super tough, whatever. And I had, I go to the gym, down the street, and I work out and stuff like that. And I walked in, I had like my tank top on and everything, and my little gold chain. And me and my brother walked in there, and I just, yeah, I was like, hey, can I sign the waiver and train for a little bit, whatever, today? And so they're like, yeah, heck yeah, dude, like, get on the mat. So they did this, like, they line up and do the rounds, we pass guards and everything like that. And I was just getting, it was like immediate submissions on every single person. I was getting triangle choked, arm barred, like, Kimura. It's like, it was bad. It was really bad. So that was like my first kind of like on the mat experience going to that gym. So that was like, that was a very interesting kind of firsthand experience for me, where I was like, okay, this is what it looks like. There's no standing and kicking and punching. It's all literally just like you're on the ground. They've got their guards, their closed guards, open guards, half guards, and yeah. So that was kind of cool for to get that, as the first starter. That gym is just, those guys are tough. So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, Caesars is a notoriously tough school. Really, really high technical players there. I appreciate what you said there. I think everyone listening can appreciate the day that you first walk in. As guys, especially, we like to think like, I mean, I can handle myself. Like, I can fight. I know a little thing. I know some things, And then you get in there and you're just like, you have like a 120-pound computer programmer beat the shit
yeah,
out of you. So it's
exactly.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's like,
yeah.
what is going on here? Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
John Danaher calls it like being a bumbling idiot. Like you're just like you're just getting thrown around, and you're like, oh gosh, what the heck? Like actually, like
Yeah.
I thought I could bench, this much and squat this much, but really it doesn't really do nothing when you're yeah,
Yeah.
when you're in a
I've told this
Kimura.
I've I've told the story on the show before. My very first class way back in the day, when I first started training, I was like I was a little over 200 pounds. Now I've lost a lot of weight since then, but I was a little over 200 pounds, and they paired me with a pro fighter female purple belt, and she was like 130. So I'm just thinking, all right, well, I'll go light on this girl. I'll be nice to her.
Yeah,
We slapped hands. She arm dragged me, took my back, choked me. She probably did that to me over and over again. And ultimately, that's what
yeah,
sold me on jujitsu. I'm like, okay, I have to learn this. But
yeah.
yeah, that first day is always a humbling one. So a lot of people know about the 209 through the Diaz brothers, and anyone that's done their research knows Stockton's a pretty tough place to grow up. It's a tough town. Did you grow up?
Yeah,
You said you had a brother. You had a brother growing up, so that alone
yeah,
probably got you a little bit of experience scrapping in the house, at least. How
yeah,
about growing up? Were,
yeah.
were you were you involved in altercations or self defense situations as a kid growing up in Stockton?
No, my older brother, he kind of, I have two older brothers. One of them's like 10 years older than me. The other one's maybe 5 years older. And then I got a sister. A lot of them kind of just made sure that I, you know, stayed out of trouble. They always wanted me to like focus on school. They wanted me to focus on like, not getting involved in what's going on in the street and stuff like that. So I tried to like, I mean, they have their stories, they have their things. So they always try to like, keep me out of it, keep me out of anything like anything that would cause that type of, conflict and whatever. But I mean, yeah, the neighborhood I grew up in, there was like, it's kind of like you know, whatever. It's like a rough, it's whatever. It's like you get in type of altercations, you'll get you punched, whatever, smacked, thrown on the ground, whatever. But nothing really like where I would at that time when I was younger, under probably I'm thinking like maybe under 15, whatever. I didn't know nothing. So yeah, you get your ass kicked, sometimes. So it happens, when you're
Yeah.
young.
Yeah, imagine having two older brothers, especially one significantly older brother, probably helped keep some trouble at bay, because people probably know, okay,
Yeah,
he's got a
yeah,
couple
yeah,
brothers, and one's a lot older than us. So, and
yeah,
it's also nice that you had them keeping you kind of on the straight and narrow and keeping you out of trouble. That's a very
yeah,
beneficial thing to have
yeah.
too.
I play
Now you
baseball, so
mentioned
they're like just focus on that. Yeah, go ahead.
that. No, so, I'm
Sorry.
sorry. How long did you play baseball for? Because that's something else I always like to know about people that do jujitsu, is what athletic backgrounds they
Oh,
had
oh,
previously.
I was a pitcher. I was a pitcher for the A's. So I was like, maybe all throughout some high school, a lot of high school. So yeah, that was like my thing. I'd always focus on, like I'd go to my grandparents in Redwood City. Like the first thing I do is I just go and practice out in backyard, just pitch all day long. So I was like, I was like, we got to go to the championship. You know, that was kind of like my thing. Like I love baseball. I had like, and I didn't have speed, but I could always strike people out with whatever my accuracy. So it was, I'm like a little, I'm only like 5'8". You know, at the time I was probably like 110 pounds. Right now I'm like 130. So like, I'm not super, big. So yeah.
When did you start watching instructionals online? Because you mentioned that reading books and obviously watching instructionals is one way that you've really pursued jujitsu. How
Yeah.
long have you been studying instructionals at this point?
I think it was like 2016. 2016, I was listening to like a Rogan podcast, and it was like Eddie Bravo was on there. I was just working uh at this like medical place, and I was listening on my headphones. I just listened to, the podcast, and they were talking about jujitsu, and I was like, all right, like, I don't know anything. I'm interested what these guys have to say. They're always talking about like butterfly guards, worm guards, half guards, all these different types of like spider guard. I was like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about, but they'd always talk about this guy Marcelo. They're like, Marcelo, Marcelo Garcia, his thighs, and all this stuff, and they talk about like smoking weed. And so I was like considered like kind of like, it sounds stupid, but I was like, okay, so effective jiu-jitsu is being high. So I don't do that, but I want to know who this Marcelo guy is. I was like, so I looked him up. I looked him up online, and I'd watch his like, what is his like Jakar fights, and that Rico guy, him doing butterfly sweeps on that Rico guy. I was
Yeah,
like,
Rico
what in the
Rodriguez.
world?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, Rico Rodriguez. I was like, man, and then I watched those, kind of repetitively. I'm like, what the heck is he doing? Like, how does he sit and like hook his legs and then like keep kicking them back? You know what I mean? And I think it was like, what was the other guy? It was like Rickson, someone. Like it was like one of the young
Hicks and
guys.
Gracie. Oh,
Hickson
oh,
Gracie, was that? Yeah.
well, it might
Oh,
have been Hickson's
Kron,
son. Is
Kron,
Crone? Yeah, his son. Yeah, yeah.
Kron. Yeah, his son. And I was watching that. I was like, well, dang, that's kind of interesting how this guy's like doing that. So I went and I looked him up on YouTube, and I'd watch those fights from him, and then I'd watch what is it? He had this like MG in action kind of
Yeah.
website, whatever. So I looked at that a little bit, and so yeah, that site was like mainly like just him submitting everybody like at his gym in New York. So I was like, that's pretty cool. Like that's now I know, why he's, you know talked about. So it's like, yeah. So I kind of like picked up stuff from him. Butterfly sweep, yeah, that's what I
That's
learned.
awesome.
I was like, first time I heard about it.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
something that's really cool with people that find jujitsu, especially people that are smaller, is you see these guys that are the same size as you, like small, like lighter weight, featherweight, bantamweight type guys who can, man, go in absolute divisions and just tear the house up. Like for
yeah,
example, you mentioned Marcelo, like Jeff Glover, or there's Crone. There's tons of guys that used to go
yeah,
out there
yeah,
and still do to this day. Lighter weight guys who go into absolute divisions and do really well. Um,
yeah,
in recent years, Lachlan Giles did a great job at the ADCC Absolute. And it's really neat to see that, okay, hey, it doesn't really matter if there's a massive size advantage. Whereas in other martial arts or other, if you were, God forbid, unskilled at all, it didn't have any training at all, and you were in a street fight with someone much bigger, you'd be at a pretty serious disadvantage. So it's really,
right,
it's liberating almost to know, like, okay, if I learn this and I study this, I can make this work for me. And that kind of brings us
yeah,
to where we're at.
exactly.
That kind of brings us to your the reason you're on the show here is you recently had an incident happen at your job, where you had to use the knowledge that you've collected through instructionals, in self-defense. So if you don't mind, tell us about where you work, what happened, and what the results were afterwards.
Yeah. Well, I work at I'm a security guard. At currently at like this outlet. It's an outlet store. We sell like clothes and, produce and, just random like grocery items and stuff like that. So like I'm kind of like loss prevention there. And I also do a whole bunch of other stuff. But they're like, there was an incident actually before this incident where one of my coworkers got, really injured, seriously injured from someone who was, stealing, and he got hit over the head with a cell phone. And they ended up hiring a security company where they're all strapped. They had like, CCWs and everything like that, but the contract was like maybe 23,000 a month or whatever. So they did a contract with the security company for maybe, I don't know, it was like 6 months or something like that. And then I told the owners, I was like, hey, I've got, I got a guard card, I can do loss prevention or whatever. So they're like, all right, cool. So they let that company go, and then now ended up being security there. And it was like a couple months later, to this day, maybe 4 months ago, we had a guy come in the store, and he's like a 51. We call it 51. He's not allowed there. He's kind of a troublemaker in the neighborhood. He had an incident go on down the street at a clothing store, which I found out like 2-3 days after this incident. Some like witnesses or people around there, they told me about kind of his routines. But he walked in the store. This guy, I was like, hey, what's going on, dude? Like, are you good? You kind of come in here and you leave. You're not. It's kind of like we don't really do that whole thing where we let people in if they're not allowed in the store. And he was like real aggressive. He was cussing at me, saying like all this type of profanity and everything like that. And he's like, I'm gonna, fight you, I'm gonna hit you, whatever, whatever. And I was just standing there. I was like, whatever, like. And my boss came up, he's not security. He's just like owns the store. He came up, and he's like, what's going on? You need to calm down. The guy's like, fuck you. I'm gonna hit. It was just really. He was like super just aggressive, like automatically. He didn't want to have a dialogue. He just wanted to get out and leave, and nobody was stopping him. We were just kind of standing in front of him. Like, well, I don't. My kind of rule is like, I'm not putting hands on you. I don't touch you. You know what I mean? Unless you touch one of my coworkers. You know what I mean? Or if you like, try to fight a customer or whatever, I'm gonna put you aside, whatever. Um, and my owner, the owner of the store, was like, the guy ended up saying, he's like, I'm gonna smack you, I'm gonna hit you with this, I'm gonna hit you with this. And he had this cane in his hand. And I know someone on Instagram was like, sorry to belabor this, but someone on Instagram was like, oh, there is like, he had a cane, what is it, a senior citizen, whatever. And I'm like, so for some people who don't know this, you know people who are like in their 40s and younger, older 30s, whatever, and they want to act like pimps, they also use canes. And so this guy, he had chains around his neck, big old chain, like Flavor Flav chains. He had a big old coat, and he had a cane, but he was around his arm and he was walking around with it. You know what I mean? He didn't need this cane. He was just kind of like that type of, he was in that zone, he was in that mood where
Yeah.
he's like, kind of like the pimp, whatever. So he said, I'm going to smack you. I'm going to hit you with this. And my boss was like, you're not hitting anybody with it. And immediately after my boss said that, he just just smacked him over the head, hit him, and the cane broke. It snapped. I didn't see this because it's in my peripheral. So he's standing in front of me. He swings, hits my boss right here, and immediately it was like I literally was just standing there watching him, like just like looking at him. And then he's like, I'm gonna hit you. Bam! Smacks, hits my boss over the head, and immediately I go in. My elbows tucked in. I go in, and I grab a body lock, right? And like John Danaher always says, like check when you're up against someone, you got your ear against their chest, whatever. The shoulders and the hip line, if they're straight together, then you go backwards. If they're leaning forward, then you dip them forward. Then you do like an underhook flip. So at that moment, I went in, grabbed him, and I squeezed like his like hip line in where his shoulders went back. And at that time, I spun around, went towards the door, and we're going back outside. We're heading towards outside. I think my boss like had a hand on his shoulder or whatever, and then I just ducked in. We went to the ground. He landed right on his back. My uh my ear was on his chest. I went immediately to mount, past his knees, went to mount, and then I cross framed him. He was like pulling my hair. He was like yelling. He's like, "Fuck you guys! Like I'm gonna beat your ass! Like fuck you!" And then I went under, and I did a under over cross frame, and I held his his chin right here where he was looking that way, and then I shucked his arm up like this. So now he's like this, and I had my ear to his arm on the outside. So I was just holding him like this with a full mount, and yeah, I was just on him, and he was like, "Fuck you! I'm gonna, you know." He was just saying all this crazy stuff. The crowd around us, there was like ladies and dudes and like men and like, and there was probably like 40 people around us just circled, and as I was holding him, there was there was people, like there was guys around there that like, dude, if you get up, we're gonna kick your ass. Fuck you. If you get up, you start running, bro, we're gonna kick your ass. Stay there, stay down. And he was like trying to move and stuff like that. And they're like, stay down. And so at maybe 5 minutes in, 3 minutes in, people started getting louder and started saying that stuff. And I was like holding him. And in my mind, it was like in my mind, I was like, okay, I gotta hold this dude down to like protect him now from the public, because they're all mad because my boss is like he was bleeding, like he was leaning over, kind of looking at us, like, and there was just blood everywhere, just all over my arms, all over the guys, like behind his head, and the cane was snapped like on the ground. And yeah, it was like 20 minutes later, um police showed up, and they were like, he just rolled. I got up, and I was like just everything all over me, and the cops, he just rolled, like he was done. The guy was like, fuck, just put me in handcuffs. Like he rolled over and just everyone's like, they clapped and stuff like that, and the cops like, are you clapping because we're here? And I was like, I didn't say anything. I was like, dang, what the heck, like what just happened? You know what I mean? Like how the heck did this, like how did we get to this point, like
That's incredible.
yeah.
That's incredible, man. No, I mean, first of all, congratulations on not getting yourself hurt and also protecting your boss and the general public that was there. This is an awesome case study, man. It really is. I mean, people talk about the best ways to learn jiu-jitsu and the best ways to build the muscle memory and the triggers in your mind to go for things when it's time to use something in a self-defense situation when your adrenaline's real high. And you've proved, man, that by studying and by training and practicing, that this all works very well on the street. So this was a guy that was banned from the premises before. It sounds like you got him to the ground, you got him to a head and arm. Correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like a head and arm control is what you had him in, but you weren't
Yeah.
choking him.
Yeah.
So you just
No,
pinned him until the cops got there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't have weight on. I was talking to the guy. I was like, dude, chill out, bro. I was like, just calm down. Like, bro, like you're not going anywhere. Just chill out. And he was like, yeah, he was yelling, cussing, like screaming, like yeah. And then eventually he just kind of, after like maybe 10 minutes, and he stopped doing all that, and he was like, okay, like I'm fucked. Like you could tell, like he's like, all right, I made a mistake. Like now I gotta chill here. But no, I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't thinking of like, nothing crossed my mind where I was like, okay, I want to transition to like an armbar or triangle and choke this guy out and like just put him to sleep. It was literally just like, how can I just apprehend him? You know what I mean? Just hold him there so till the cops get here. You know what I mean? That was kind of like my yeah, that was the scenario that went through my mind.
That's great, man. Well, I mean, it sounds like you're a great member of your company's security team, because it does take a certain personality type and a certain amount of control, self-control and awareness like that to do the job well. I used to work security myself for many years before I was doing this. And that was always something we tried to instill in people that we worked with is, hey, you know, especially in like the bar and nightclub scene, it's like, hey, we're not brawling with people. We're trying to control and calm things down and separate groups.
Yeah.
So it's nice that you have that personality type. It seems like they did the right thing in hiring you. You got to love the guy that's stuck in bottom mount with clearly no escape plan, who's saying he's going to kick your ass regardless. It's always entertaining when you hear someone that's just got nothing, you know, with a loud mouth and lots of threats. Let me ask you this. What do you know what the laws are in California as far as using chokes and things like that in self-defense? Because I know it varies from state to state, and I know that that's something people that work security in law enforcement have to be mindful of. Where does California fall with using chokes and using submissions? Had it gone that far that you would have had to use it?
Not sure. No, I don't know. I don't know. I think of it like, I think of it in terms of like, you know, protecting, like, that's what, I don't know. I know I know there's probably some type of law, whatever, about what you can and cannot do. But in this situation, I thought, okay, so he's causing bodily harm to another person. You know, he's physically injured somebody in front of me. And so, yeah, that was kind of like what came to my mind, is like, how can I protect other people and the person who just got injured in this situation. I kind of think of it as like, if a cop like was struggling on the side of the road, you know what I mean, and he's getting pummeled, or she's getting, you know, some really terrible things happening, like they're just, and you pull over and you're like, oh, well, then this is the situation where you have to like kind of intervene, you know what I mean, not like it's like the situation where it's kind of like you're obligated to intervene. You have to intervene, you know what I mean. You can't just kind of let something happen, take a phone out and start recording it and go, dang, look at that, wow, you know, what a terrible thing happening, you know. So yeah, so I didn't really think about any of that stuff. It was kind of just like, how can I protect? But no, I don't know the answer to that question.
No,
I
that's
don't
great.
know if there's
That's
any type of law.
What are your thoughts on adrenaline and managing adrenaline in these kinds of situations? Like, based off your experience, did you feel a significant spike in adrenaline? Did it take you some time to kind of cool down or keep yourself thinking straight? What are your thoughts on that as far as managing adrenaline in a situation like that?
Yeah, I think the first immediate situation when the argument was happening, I realized, I was like, okay, just, you know, stay calm. You know, I was just kind of thinking to myself, like, okay, like, stay calm. I wasn't thinking like, okay, if he does this, I'm gonna go do this, you know, and then I'm gonna take him down, I'm gonna mount him, and then I'm gonna cross frame him. It was literally just like, I was just looking at him, like, like John Danner always says, like, focus on the collarbone. So I was just kind of looking at his collarbone, like, I wasn't even looking at a person in front of me, you know. I was just kind of like, okay, so, like, whatever, like, what happens, whatever, I don't know what's gonna happen. So, and then when it happened, it was almost like, um, it was, I don't know how to put it, where it was just kind of like, you know, it immediately just happened, where I was like, I'm going in, you know what I mean? It was, I'm not even gonna wait for the second swing. I'm just going in, and whatever happens, happens. And I think a lot of that happened because of the risk concept that I remember. John Denner always talks about risk, you know what I mean? And that's kind of like, I think about, I'm like, okay, what's the worst case scenario? Is he going to mount me? He's going to put me in north south. He's going to knee on belly me, you know, rear mount, you know, is he going to mount me? Like, I know how to get out of this. So it's like the risk was like, you know, it's like, I can take a risk, you know what I mean? So it was immediately like, I was like, okay, so the worst case scenario is like, I know how to get out of the worst case scenarios by watching these instructionals. So I was like, yeah, but it just happened. And when it was happening, and I saw all of like the blood, I was just like, everything kind of like, you know, it was like, okay, so yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It was like very calm. I was very calm in the situation. I was like, yeah, I don't know.
That's great, man. That's awesome. I can definitely relate. I distinctly remember situations I had working security myself where there's the buildup of the altercation, and then all of a sudden things are happening. And then all of a sudden you're in mount and you're just like, man, how that, like,
Yeah.
I remember instances where I'm
Yeah.
like, how do I even get here? Like, I'll take it, but
Yeah.
I don't even know how I
Right.
got here. I'm just
Yeah.
here. And so it's like, I think it's all just muscle memory. And it's
Yeah.
cool that, that despite the fact that you were mostly self-taught and learning through instructionals, that you were still able to access that knowledge and access those skills that you'd studied, remotely. I know you said, you jokingly told me off air that you consider yourself kind of a remote student of John Danaher, which I think is a cool
Yeah.
do you feel that Dan? Yeah. Do you feel that John's instructionals have helped you the most of all the ones that you've watched?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. No doubt. There's no doubt about it in my mind that was part of the situation. No doubt in my mind. Absolutely no doubt. Like, I know, it's like, do I gotta sign like a waiver? Do I gotta sign a contract to be part of DDS? You know what I mean? Or New Wave? I'm like, dang, but it's like immediately when I started looking up, because I always knew being pinned was my biggest problem in the gym. I'm like, okay, like, and then for some reason, I don't know, the stars aligned or whatever, but in 2023, I started focusing on, I don't know how, honestly, I can't remember how I found John Danaher. I knew um, um, he was a UFC coach, for, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on George
Or
St. Pierre.
GSP. Yeah.
Yeah, GSP. I knew he was the coach. I knew he was the coach. I've seen him, but I can't remember when I actually like was like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go back and find, GSP's coach. But it was like literally, I was on the BJJ. Oh yeah, I was on the BJJ Fanatics podcast. I think I saw Marcelo stuff, and then I saw John Danaher as like the top coach, and I was like, oh, that's that one guy. That's that dude who's GSP's coach. So I looked at his stuff, and literally he just came out with positional escapes, and I was like, what the heck, like. I was like, I didn't know you could focus on positional escapes. You know what I mean? I didn't know. I was like, this
Yeah.
is like exactly what I need. I was like, submission escapes and positional escapes. And then he like defines like there are only 5 pins in jiu-jitsu. I'm like, just 5? I'm like, okay, like tell me what I need to know. And like I was hooked after that. I was hooked once I found positional escapes and submission escapes. I was over with. I was like, I'm done. Whatever you want to tell me, I'm learning. I'm buying all your stuff. I only got like 16 gigs whatever on I'll pull it. I'll put all of it on here. So yeah, that's
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great, man. Yeah. John's instructionals have helped me significantly as well, especially his guard retention. His guard retention instructional and his close guard stuff really changed the way I play guard.
Yeah.
But yeah, you really can't go wrong with any of them. And I always like you said, there's certain aspects of jiu-jitsu that he really isolates and breaks down, and it kind of divorces from the rest of jiu-jitsu to focus on, that I thought was really, really great. Like for example, the retention one. Like, I'd been working on my guard and studying different various open guard variations and focusing on closed guard, and all along, a lot of the things I was learning, retention wasn't really emphasized necessarily. It was more focused on, okay, here's how you sweep, here's how you submit, here's how you control and keep the guy from passing your guard. But then when he said, well, why don't we just do this whole retention instructional, that made me realize, man, I really should be focusing on just retaining guard.
Yeah.
If you can't pass my guard, and if I'm able to retain and keep that center line, all the other stuff I've been studying now becomes much more effective as well. So I appreciate that you said that about the pins.
Everything begins with retention. That's what he says. Everything begins with that. Yeah, definitely.
What's been your top instructional? Would you say it was positional escapes? Do you think that's your favorite one that you've studied, or do you have others that have become top of the list as well?
Positional escapes. I love the idea of, he says, like, when you escape, don't just go back to guard, do the maximizing principle where you're like attacking the whole body. If you lose the upper body, if you go from side control, north south, and you attack the upper body and you lose it, then go back to the legs, So, or mount and rear mount, knee on belly, attack the legs, And so it's like attacking the whole body, the whole body, and always being relentless, having constantly attacking, that was like a game changer for me. I'm still trying to put that into practice, because when you're sparring and you're training like on the mat, there's so much stuff going on, but you're constantly attacking is what I'm trying to focus on. And I love open guard part 1, part 2. Like, that's super cool. I love the freaking standing the ground series. That's hecka cool. His passing series has helped crazy amounts. Like, yeah, I'm still trying to, like, the other day I was just watching, I usually watch it at night before I go to bed. I'll just, I'll take like a melatonin, a 5 milligram melatonin, and I'll hit play, and then I'll just watch it until I fall asleep and close the laptop. But I, yeah, I was watching like his passing where he was talking about, it was like this one situation Gordon Ryan was doing. He used him as like an example where you'll do a side step, a crescent step, walk one way and then go to the other way, and then the other person's retaining, and then you go to like side control. I don't know. I was trying to practice those steps because he's like step here, cross over here, and then step back. And then he said it makes the person look like they don't know any jiu-jitsu. So like, yeah, I hate getting trapped in close guard. So I'm like, I always I'm trying to focus on my passing right now. So because
That's awesome.
yeah, trying to get past the knees.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a constant struggle, man. I just became a black belt myself a few months ago, and I still feel like I'm learning I'm working on everything still, like everything I'm trying to get better at. So
Congratulations.
It never really
That's awesome.
Thank you, bro.
Sweet.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate
That's
that.
cool.
Thank you, man. Yeah, but it really does. It never ends. Like the old saying, like for years I've been interviewing black belts and they all say like, oh yeah, it's like a new white belt. You just start learning. I'm just kind of like, okay, he's just being humble. But now that I'm here, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, like I still, I've been doing this like 18 years. I still have stuff. I'm still learning all the time. So
yeah.
So let me ask, did your boss give you a raise after all this?
No.
Not yet. We're gonna petition for a raise for you, my man, because he got split with a cane. He's bleeding all over the place. Matt saves the day, and he hasn't had a raise yet. All right, we're gonna.
No, it didn't come up in the conversations we've had after.
But obviously, you have I'm sure you've got lots of commendment for it. You have probably got lots of pats on the back from people that you work with.
Yeah. I mean, a lot. Some people didn't even know that I even studied jiu-jitsu. They're like,
has it made them want to study? Have you tried to get that, to encourage your
coworkers?
Oh,
I tell them all the time. I talk about it all the time with them. I was telling my coworker the other day, and she was like, "What did you just say?" Because I was like, she's like one of my best friends, Carmen. She's like, but I'll tell them like randomly. Yeah, I told her the other day what I say. I was like, our legs are like a crocodile's jaw, and then she's like, what? And I was like, yeah, because when they have super tremendous power, but then you wrap a little tape around it, they can't open it. And she's like, okay. And then I was like, yeah. So if you're like seating, you can push, right? But then if someone's passing your guard and you pull the legs out, it's more difficult. And she's like, oh, okay, like, yeah. So I'll tell them, like, I'll tell my coworkers, like, hold on, stand there real quick. So do a thumb down and grab and do a pull, like we call it 2-in-1. And they're like, yeah. So yeah.
I think we're always, I think everyone that gets hooked to jiu-jitsu all becomes like missionaries. We're almost like missionaries traveling to places, trying to convince people to get on board and check it out. I remember when I worked security, so I'm 6 foot tall. I'm 6 feet and I'm 172 right now. But when I was working security, I was closer to 200, but I was still one of the smaller guys compared to the guys I worked with. And I used to take these two like football player size guys. I'd be like, dude, here, grab my elbow. And I'd put a gable grip on. And I'd say, separate my hands. I'll give you like $20. And they'd pull and pull and they can't. So I try to do like little things like, man, you guys got to come train, man. This stuff's cool. You got to check it out. And it's for security. I mean, I really don't think there's a better self-defense system for people that work security. Because at the end of the day, like if there's an incident with someone, you can't really box their face off if someone's shoplifting and tries to resist you a little bit. I mean, if someone takes a swing on you, of course you can, whatever's appropriate to defend yourself. But man, clinching someone, taking them to the ground and pinning them like what you did is not only effective and safe for you and the person you're dealing with, but it also keeps your company safe. I remember working security. One of the things that we always had to be concerned about was the club owners would always say like, man, don't try not to hit people because we don't want to deal with lawsuits. Because even if they started it, they're going to get a lawyer. They're going to, come and try to sue us and say one of the people in their establishment, split their face open or whatever. So, it seems to me that jiu-jitsu should be the go-to thing if you're out there listening, doing security. I mean, man,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really, I can't think of anything better, honestly. You mentioned that you're doing security in a retail area. What's the silliest thing you've seen someone shoplift?
Lint rollers.
Lint rollers. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Desperate times out there, I guess. People, serious lint problems out there, I guess. Yeah.
Yep. Definitely lint rollers. That's a big one. Yeah. Powdered sugar. Yeah.
Powdered sugar.
Yeah. Powdered sugar is a big one. Yeah. Yeah. And on the weekends, it's usually just typical like beer runs, beer runs, or like they'll try to take a cart. Some of some of the homeless around the neighborhood, they love the carts. So they'll take our carts, they're like, oh, this one doesn't have a lock on it. So they'll throw their stuff in there and start walking off. I got to go chase them whenever. Yeah.
That sucks. Yeah, that sucks. Let me ask you this, and I'm not trying to be political here or anything, but I've heard that in California, there's I don't know if this is a statewide thing or if it's in certain municipalities, but there are dollar amounts where if theft is below that amount, it's not considered like an immediate response incident for police. Is that the case in Stockton? And if so, how has that affected you as someone that works for loss prevention?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there is, because there's people are very confident about taking small items. I don't think there's any repercussions for anything like that when they take small items. Like the retail theft is unbelievable. Like especially next door, there's like a Walgreens next door, and like their whole place is locked. Glass sealed, keys. You got to ask for, hey, can I get some, whatever, toothpaste, whatever, some freaking, whatever, and you got to go and they'll come unlock it for you. And people walk in there all the time and take things. It's crazy. Like during Christmas, it was like a lot of they had like socks, like Christmas socks and stuff like that. And a lot of people just walked in and took all of them. Like they just walked in and jacked them. Yeah, I was over there the other day. I was like walking, or not the other day, but during December, Christmas, and I walked by Walgreens, and they're like, hey, come back, he's taking our socks, whatever, and this dude had a whole pile in his hand of Christmas socks, and I was like, I walked up and I started taking some of them, and he's like, oh, bro, what the heck, man, and then he just walked off. So I was like, yeah, but it's a lot of theft in that area. Yeah, it's not a nice area of Stockton. It's like Wilson Way. Wilson Way is like known for like, not being the suburbs.
Yeah. No, I got you. Yeah. I got a good buddy of mine is Kurt Osiander. He lives in San Francisco. He lives right outside San Francisco, but he teaches in the city. And he'll like almost on a daily basis send me just crazy videos of shoplifting stuff that's going on in San Francisco. Cause I think their limit's like $1,000. I think it's like $1,000 or less. That it's not considered like an immediate emergency police response. So like you said, they'll just walk in, snatch stuff and leave knowing cops aren't coming. And there's videos I've seen where they have things locked up and guys literally have like a blowtorch. Like there's a guy with a blowtorch that was trying to like melt the thing. And bro, that's gotta be a crazy environment to work security in. Cause I gotta say like, I did loss prevention as well for it was kind of like a swap meet kind of mall where it had like, it was a mall, but it was like several little like tents and stands and stuff. I did that a few times, but we didn't really deal with anything that heavy. So that's got to be pretty crazy knowing that there's people that brazen and also that desperate to take things like that.
I think too, like the cop, the police there, they got a lot of important calls, you know what I mean, in Stockton. And so it's like, I think it's like a consensual, what is it called? An agreement in the city. It's like, they got the focus on their thing, and these kind of petty thefts isn't really like the highest priority. So it's kind of like, I think that's just like where they get their confidence is like, no one's the cop's not going to show up because I'm taking, some hurricanes, you know what I mean, some beer or whatever. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I guess your incident was different because there was an assault where someone was,
Oh
wounded. Your
yeah.
boss was bleeding all over the place, and
Yeah.
man, that's still crazy. You had to hold the guy down for almost 20 minutes. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can imagine that you probably probably wondering where the hell the cops are at that point, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There was one that place I mentioned that I worked loss prevention myself. It was located right on the city limits between two different cities within the Atlanta area. And whenever you'd call 911, they would sometimes bounce back and forth saying, "Oh no, you're actually not in this town. You're in this jurisdiction. So let me transfer you to them." And then they'd say, "No, no,
Oh
no, you're
yeah.
not with us. You're in there." So there was times where I had a guy pinned down one time for it wasn't 20 minutes, thank God, but it was longer than it should have been. As we're on the phone trying to figure out which jurisdiction is coming to help. So yeah,
Oh no.
security's a crazy job, man. I hope you stay safe out there and continue using your skills efficiently, but also avoiding any. I hope there's no more incidents that you have to deal with on a physical level like
Definitely. Yeah,
that. Yeah,
thanks.
yeah.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
so when you're training, are you preferring when you're at Caesar? Are you preferring gi or no gi training more? Would you say?
I'm both, but mainly no-gi. Yeah. Yeah, mainly no-gi. I enjoy no-gi. Um, but yeah, I'm still getting used to the gi. I'm still getting used to like breaking grips, you know what I mean? A lot of yeah, I just don't have much experience on like all the options, you know what I mean? I don't have a lot of experience on like where the grip options, you know what I mean? So once we do like no-gi on Wednesdays, like wrestling. We just did it yesterday. And we did, I don't know, like 10 rounds or whatever each. There was like a whole group of us, and he split the room up in, this group over here, this 20 over here, this 20 over here, and then we went in twos, and we did like, and then we switched, like, so we didn't spar with the same person. So, but those are cool. I like Wednesdays. Wednesdays are cool, but I'm getting used to the gi. Yeah, I'm definitely getting used to the gi, for sure. Yeah, I love the like learning all the options, because what is it? He says it's like sorry, I keep mentioning John Danner, but he's like,
No, you're good.
it's
You're
like a
good.
rope. It's like a rope around
Yeah,
your neck. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I'm getting
yeah.
used to that, where I'm like, it literally is like here I'm going like this and trying to guard, like I'm trying to catch their hand, but then they're grabbing this and going and putting me into like a bow and arrow choke, and I'm like, oh, all right, that's cool. Like,
Forgot about my rope. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah.
got you. Yeah. Something I meant to ask you earlier. Do you feel like there's any aspect of jujitsu that you want to focus on more now that you've had this physical encounter? Is there anything that you realize that you like thinking back on the incident itself? Is there anything that you've, I guess, wanted to focus on more as a result of dealing with this at this point?
Takedowns, and just keep focusing on positional escapes. Yeah. So I just like, and passing, like those I don't know why I just think of those, where it's like those come to my mind. I think they're just like the most interesting one. Not the other stuff. Like, not saying like mount is not interesting, side control's not interesting, back takes are not interesting. That's all freaking interesting. Like, but what I don't know if it's maybe because it just comes natural to me, where I would um I never thought I would know so many options in takedowns until I got standing the ground. Those three series where it's like 8 in each. And now that I see all of those, I'm like, oh wow, there's so many different options um, to do takedowns, and the super importance. That incident kind of showed me the real super importance of getting past the knees, getting past knees, um, and then also like for myself, like how to get out of pins. Yeah, so like definitely those. I love, like I'm literally in my files. I just finished because it's all in like an order, um from like I have like file A and file B, and file A is all bottom game, file B is all top game. So I'm like, file B is going down, file A is going up. you know, so like I have position file A is positional escapes, submission escapes. I have Giancarlo's leg lock counters and leg lock defense, and then it's open guard, part one, part two, and then it's half guard, and then ageless bottom game. So it's all up, you know, all movements going upwards, and then file B is the takedowns, you know, standing the ground, and then it's passing, side control, mount, and then I just got the fastest way rear mount, and then it ends with ageless top game. So it's all going down, like all movements going down. But yeah, I don't know why I'm kind of fascinated. I'm focusing on passing a lot. Yeah, so because that incident kind of like showed me the power of it, of getting um, over the knees. Yeah, and then also showed me like, you know, while that incident was happening, I was like, okay, so he's not, you know, I see that too in other people, but they don't do knee elbow frames. You know, they're not doing like, you know, escaping knee elbow frames. A lot of that is like, you know, I see the importance of it, learning it myself, but then when I see other people not doing it, I'm like, dang, I want to know more of it. I want to continue learning more of how to get out of pins. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, I like that you emphasize takedowns as well. Because I've said for a long time that I think a jiu-jitsu practitioner that can't take the fight to the ground in a real situation is kind of like being a great airline pilot that can't land the plane or can't take the plane off. You know, you have to,
Oh, right.
you got to be able to, it's like, it's great if you can fly when you're in the air, but you got to get it in the air. It's kind of the
Yeah.
same thing with jiu-jitsu. If you're going to use grappling in self-defense or in combat of any kind, you've got to be able to get it to the ground. So, yeah, that's really great that you emphasize that. So let me ask you this in closing, man. What are some of your major goals for 2025? Are you hoping like, do you have any ambitions to compete in jiu-jitsu? Are you looking to how far away from your blue belt do you think you are? What are some things on the horizon for you this year?
Oh man, um, belt changing belts. I don't know how long that's gonna be. That would be cool. I mean, that would be a really cool. I would love to to get to a point where, you know, my coach sees progression. You know, I mean, he was telling me last night about, you know, I asked him, I was like, hey, is there anything I need to work on? Like, do you see like any flaws or whatever? Do you see any like what I need to focus on? I mean, he gave me some super good advice. Like, he was super encouraging, telling me to keep focusing on the things I was focusing on, and, you know, not be so like, not think, because I'm thinking a lot. Like, I'm like thinking, oh, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? Do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? And he was just saying, you know, just let those incidents where, you know, like you're like, okay, I'm in this pin, or I'm pinning this person. You know that option, then take that option. You know what I mean? So I want to just I want to keep listening to what he has to say, because he's watching me. He sees my weaknesses and everything like that. So, but as far as like a goal at that gym, I would love to pin and submit everybody at that gym. That's kind of my goal, because I'm like, you know, I mean, these guys are like, it's just the girls and the guys there are like high level. They're very high level, even though they'll have a white belt or a blue belt, purple belt. The blue belts and some of the white belts have been training there for like a year. They're very technical, very technical. So there's a lot of countering they do on me. So I'd love to get to a spot where I know, you know, I'd love to get to a spot where I can counter them, and then I can also like pin and submit them. So yeah, constantly. That would be my goal. Cause like,
That's
you know,
outstanding.
yeah, because I mean, I was telling me the other day, I was telling him, I was like, the first day I was there, I was like, dang, this is crazy. Like, I'm just getting destroyed out here. And he's like, well, you know, if you weren't getting destroyed, and if you weren't getting, you know, pinned in submission all the time, then you should probably just be going to a different gym. You know what I mean? That kind of, it was like super stuck with me. I was like, oh, dang, because he's like, if then you're, you know, you should be teaching somewhere, not, but here you're gonna learn, because these guys are progressing at the same pace you are, and they're, you know, they're doing their technical stuff and you're doing your technical stuff. So it's like, this is the perfect, like, I knew going there, I was like, okay, I want the toughest guys. I want to go against the most, you know, technical, And that's the gym that I went to. I was like, I can't go to any other gym because I know it's going to be difficult, to try all my stuff. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, man, I hope you accomplish the blue belt soon. It sounds like you're well on your way. And again, man, like one of the big focus of what we do here at BJJ Fanatics is we provide instructionals and content for people out there to make their game better. So the whole team was really stoked to hear that we went even beyond that, and we helped someone in a real situation that could have been very dangerous. And when you credited your study of our instructionals as what, where you got the information from to help you do that, we were all very humbled and happy to hear it. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to be here today to share your story, Matt. I look forward to seeing what else you do in the future with your jiu-jitsu journey.
Appreciate it.
Excellent.
I appreciate the invite and allowing me to be on this. It's a privilege.
Guys, if you're interested and you want to follow Matt, he's active on Instagram. He's active on Facebook. He's also on YouTube. His handle for all of it is BJJ Feature. So look for BJJ Feature and follow him on social media to get in touch with him and maybe train together someday. Thank you guys for listening. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys go to bjjfanatics.com and check out all the instructionals that we discussed today. As Matt and I both said, John Danaher's instructionals have been super helpful for us along the way. But we've got something truly for everybody. Whatever aspect of your game you're working on, we've got the answers at bjjfanatics.com. That's going to do it for this episode, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in. Please stay tuned for the next episode of the BJJ Fanatics podcast.